Buenos días, buenas tardes, y buenas noches. Bonjour, bonsoir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, buongiorno, buonasera, dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, i как дела? Good morning, good Abend, wie geht es Ihnen? Covering all the languages. This is the inclusive channel. Um, J Slater case, J Slater case. It is over. Today is the 5th of May. Cinco de Mayo. Fiesta time in Mexico. It is party time. Actually, I think in Los Estados Unidos, the USA tends to have bigger Cinco de Mayo parties than in Mexico in some cases. But it is a Mexican celebration day today. A good day to have your enchiladas, tacos, burritos, etc., etc. I digress. 5th of May, which means it's not the 4th of May, which means the Jay's Law petition is over. It is closed. If I get my big fat head out of the way, you can see it says this petition is closed. It's over. And what I like about this number right here is 18,800. Right there. 18,800, nice round number, is the total of the petition. As I mentioned in an earlier video today, quite a few thousand short of the Nathan Osborne petition, a case which I keep mentioning because it's a parallel case, the same subject area, young man that, well, not that young. Nathan Osborne was a family man, husband, 4 kids maybe. But anyway, Spain, lost his life in very mysterious circumstances. That petition for Nathan, without any national media coverage like the J Slater case, got quite a few thousand more. Why is that? That should be a question that really bothers the accident group. Why did the J Slater petition attract such very low numbers when given the media exposure and all the hype? I mean, after all, there was no Shane Yerrill pushing the Nathan Osborne petition. There was no This Morning, as far as I know, ITV interview, as there was with Debbie Duncan. So this is odd that so few people nationwide should support this petition. But in this video, I'm going to sound the alarm bell for those that are so eager to back this petition and see action. I'm also going to sound an alarm bell for one Lord Lugworm, who seems, from what I observe, Lord Lugworm, El Slugtardo, professor at Pisspot University, has a habit of doing two things. He has a habit of blundering, absolutely blundering into situations where he thinks he knows something, he thinks he's in control, but it turns around to bite him. And he also has a habit of not knowing where a certain path leads to. Now, for example, we still have no response from Lord Lugworm on why it is he claims he was never in Tenerife in 2024, and yet we see him and the pumpkin himself surrounded, absolutely surrounded, just point past the Mirador, with Guardia Civil vehicles that looks, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same scene as when the Guardia Civil were looking for Jay Slater in 2024. But Lord Lugworm, who I think has yet again blundered into this situation, refuses to explain what is a very simple explanation. Why, Lord Lugworm, when you were there in 2025, were all of these Guardia Civil vehicles there just as they were looking for Jay in 2024? What's the explanation? You see, he puts out stuff thinking that he's in control of what he puts out there. He isn't. And the alarm bell I want to sound to Lord Lugworm on this subject is it was Lord Lugworm that quite happily put out there in social media world that if he went to Tenerife, he would be arrested. It is Lord Lugworm that quite happily put out there in social media world that he had already been banged up and detained by the Guardia Civil on a past occasion. Quite happily put that out there. And I said when I had my brief chat with the security guy at Barcelona airport, I said, when you have an internal memo at an airport, you get asked extra questions. Sometimes, could happen. It depends. To be honest, it really depends on the day. Mrs. Smith came through Barcelona airport recently and said it was in that arrival section, said it was absolutely chaotic. People were being directed to different machines, told different instructions. And when Mrs. Smith went through, she said she was asked not one single question, not even like, hello, who are you? Just when she went past the person that had to actually process her entry, nothing was said. And I know for a fact in those airports where you have a lot of arrivals, the pressure is on to get those people through. This is why you have those managers going around trying to make sure it's flowing. You know, you should be over here, you should be over there. This is what to expect. Get your passport in hand. Da 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 da. Because it is horrendously chaotic when it doesn't work. So what I'm saying is the likes of Lord Lugworm, Ayub Abdul Qasim, Lewis Kennedy, they might all arrive in Barcelona airport and just sail through, no questions asked. Of course, it's entirely possible. But on a quieter day, when an official would like to ask one or two questions, this is where it gets interesting. It also gets interesting in that, of course, it is possible, maybe likely, that whatever internal memo has been created by security at BCN is going to be transferred to Policía Nacional throughout Spain. So I'm just saying, if I were El Slugtardo and I were flying into Spain from a non-Schengen country, I would expect to be asked one or two questions. And I wonder if El Slugtardo has prepared his answers. I mean, when he is asked, if he is asked, have you ever been arrested in Spain? What's he going to say? At that point, El Slugtardo must presume that the officer has the answer in front of him. What if the officer asks, have you ever put out on social media that you would be arrested if you ever travel to Spain? What would El Slugtardo say? Is he going to deny his own words on social media? That's lying right in front of the immigration officer that's dealing with this person? My point is, at that point, El Slugtardo enters a whole different world where he has no idea what the outcome could be, as every question and answer follows on from that initial, have you ever been arrested in this country? Have you ever said on social media that you had been arrested in this country or would be arrested in this country? What happens after that point is very, very shaky ground. And yet, it seems to me, El Slugtardo has blundered into this situation because he just can't figure out certain things that he throws out there. Now then, let's turn, what's that got to do with Jay's Law petition? It is connected because I think we have another great example of El Slugtardo spouting out stuff that he doesn't really understand. And this is where I want to thank my contributor who communicated with me and echoed my thoughts on this. Now that the Jay's Law petition is over, we can say all this. Okay, here is the reality about how laws are made in the UK. In the case of a petition request like this, if this ever becomes a law, there's going to be a lot of toing and froing, giving and taking, debating, amending and changing. That's how it is. Unless those that are promoting this proposal are 100% sure that they would already, with this text, with this framework, have a majority in Parliament that will definitely vote for it, they're not going to put it forward as it stands. Of course not. No one wants to be the MP that headed a piece of legislation that was shot down in flames on the first vote. Of course not. So even the likes of Sarah Smith, who is a novice at this, will know that as it stands, the framework of the Jay's Law petition is going to meet opposition. That is the nature of Parliament. That is the nature of debate. That is the nature of formulating a proposed law that you hope will pass. Very, very rarely does a proposed law get passed as it was proposed. As I say, amendments, changes, concessions, compromises. This is how it works until you are, fingers crossed, pretty sure you have the majority you need. So what am I saying here? I'm saying the chances that Jay's law as a petition will go through as it stands is almost zero. Remember, the opponents of what Jay's law proposes will also have their say. So those, for example, in Parliament that are opposed to any more restrictions on freedom of expression and free speech will step into this and say, for example, as the government has already said, that the online safety bill, the online safety law, as it now is, already covers this. They will say, as opposition, we don't need this. It is yet another restriction on free speech and communications. And they might also say that the likes of TikTok and YouTube aren't going to just bow down to a Jay's law that's passed in Westminster. All valid points. So what happens then? Is there any kind of middle ground or compromise that could happen? And this is where I say yes. This is where there's a part of me that would quite like the Jay's law petition to move forward. There's a part of me that is 100% on the side of Lord Lugworm, Kaz Alice, Peter Pennington, and all the rest of them. Very much so. Because I know that when this action, if there is any action behind this Jay's law petition and it gets discussed at a committee stage and it gets debated in Parliament, there will be moments when the idea of compromise and amendment enter the heads of those that are proposing this. Now, what could some kind of compromise be? It may be that the opposition in Parliament says, you know what, we don't like this Jay's law proposal because we see it's already covered by online safety. However, we might agree to vote for it if it includes, above what's already mentioned, some ideas that were in the Nathan Osman petition that had a lot more popular support, well, 3,000 more. Could we not combine the essence of these two petitions and come up with something that works for the majority in Parliament? And at that point, I say, yes, go for it. Because even though I disagree with the Jay's law petition, I do see that what's in the Nathan Osman petition, if they were combined, would probably work in favour of those that want, from the Nathan Osman petition, greater cooperation between police forces, the UK and internationally. And, well, what does it say? The essence of the Nathan Osman petition is enhanced collaboration between UK and international authorities. I'm 100% on board with that. If Westminster said they would make it a priority in the case, for example, of UK and Spanish authorities working together, that the UK Parliament would give its full backing to every possible act that the UK authorities could do to work and collaborate with the Spanish authorities, even if that meant putting some pressure via the embassies involved to include UK participation. You see, for example, family liaison officer happens all the time in the UK, and a situation like this doesn't happen in Spain. But it may well happen in Spain if that were enshrined, that idea were enshrined in parliamentary law. If it was a law that said, even for cases abroad, even for cases involving British citizens abroad, a family liaison officer from the UK will be appointed and will be either online or in person in the foreign country, handling those moments for the UK family. That's some kind of proposal. I think that everyone would put their hand up and say, I'm behind that. How can it be that a family liaison officer is available every time in the UK, British citizen abroad gets nothing? And no one is demanding that the Spanish government accept a British police liaison officer, family liaison officer flying over there. Although I do think it would be tough for the Spanish to say no. I mean, how heartless would that come across? No, we don't want one of your family liaison helpers coming over here. And even if they did say no, like I say, it might be a good idea in law to suggest that that officer based in the UK is still liaising and doing the press conferences and putting out press updates and voicing the family's concerns in this era of the internet where everyone can see it. I think that's an area where Westminster could work on, and I would be hands up and agree with it. But what if this other suggestion were to kick in? Enhanced collaboration between international UK and international authorities. You see, what if this became one of the opposition's suggestions? How about we take the Jay's Law petition, but we add to it the proviso that even when British citizen abroad dies in mysterious circumstances and local authorities take no action to investigate, that UK authorities will be obliged, based on the evidence they have UK side, to investigate. How about that? How about we put, for example, Lancashire Constabulary in a position where they can't say, well, it's nothing to do with us, this is outside our jurisdiction. How about a law that says, if it's a British citizen from Lancashire that has died in mysterious circumstances, these are the questions that are unanswered. You are obliged, Lancashire Constabulary, to do what you can to answer these questions. You know, maybe then Lucy, Rocky, Ayub's phone is to be examined when they return to the UK, especially if there is the possibility that a conspiracy to take someone's life originated, if we're talking about premeditated, in the UK. Maybe a law obliging local police authorities to make that at least initial investigation should be law. Now, I would be in favour of that. And I would also be in favour of the J. Slater case being the first one where that happens. I'm just saying, let's imagine that an amended Jay's Law petition became law and the first family to be subjected to this compulsory UK investigation to find out the answers to unanswered questions is the Duncan Slater family. That is Jay's Law. That part of this new law is that a UK investigation will and must take place in these circumstances. Oh dear, how many in the Lord Lugworm camp are then put their hand up and say, oh, I back Jay's Law. I really do want a UK investigation to answer all the unanswered questions. All of a sudden, the amended Jay's Law petition ain't looking so tempting. And I don't think the Action Group are going to be embracing the idea that all of our unanswered questions have to be addressed in the UK under a new Jay's Law. At what point do the Lord Lugworms that have a habit of blundering into, what is that phrase? Be careful what you wish for. All of these Action Group people that seem to have a tendency to blunder into the world of careful what you wish for, at what point do they say, yeah, we still love this Jay's Law thing? Because even though there's nothing in the Jay's Law as passed by Westminster that puts any more pressure on platforms to oust so-called trolls, even though that really hasn't changed anything at all, oh dear, now we have that UK investigation that we never, ever wanted. So on that note, I'll say yes. Now the petition is over. I never signed it. There was a part of me that wanted to sign it, but I never signed it because I don't agree, obviously, with platforms removing so-called trolls, which are really people that raise very important questions. I didn't sign it. But would I be prepared to back, in whatever way I could, an amended Jay's Law petition that said family liaison officers to be assigned to cases even though they're abroad, and UK investigations to be held even when The jurisdiction is somewhere else. Yeah, I'm suddenly on board. Lord Lugworm, would you be on board with that, starting with the J. Slater case? UK investigation to be held immediately to answer the unanswered questions. And would you, Lord Lugworm, be happy to be a witness and make statements and be on the record, questioned under caution, for everything you did in the background to this case? If the answer is yes, then you agree with me. But, Lord Lugworm, maybe you should start preparing your answers now, just as you should have prepared your answers for arriving in Spain when asked. Have you ever been arrested in Spain? Did you ever say that you would be arrested in Spain? There's just a few people out there that need to prepare some answers, because I think this is moving in our direction. Fingers crossed, gang, that this very low number, 18,800, isn't so small that we can't now move forward with the Jay's Law petition, have it amended to suit what is really needed under British law. All right. On that note, I will say, hasta luego, hasta mañana. Yes, same pink shirt as yesterday. Just to annoy the accident group, it'll probably be the same pink shirt tomorrow, and Ayub style for the next week or so. Let's see. Hasta luego, adios. Hasta más tarde. See you later.